This video is sponsored by the international banker-hating guys over at Noble Gold. While China continues to contemplate dumping the dollar, you might want to consider converting some of your paper fiat currency to the sound money of gold and silver before all those unwanted dollars come back home to roost. The fact is, when our economy is flooded by those paper notes, the value of the dollar will plummet and precious metals will rise. Click the link below to get Noble Gold's free inflation report. If you guys get something out of this video, give it a like and share it with everybody you know.
I understand that this is an extremely sensitive topic for a lot of people. There is no intent with this video to offend. But if you find that you are offended at this content, all I ask that you do is watch the video in its entirety. And if at some point you disagree, please stick around and argue with arguments based on logic and not emotion. That's all I ask.
Imagine if you grew up surrounded by members of a religion that taught that the ultimate noble thing you could do would be to sacrifice your firstborn to a bare-headed god named Grog. All your life, everyone you knew did this. Their subsequent children were allowed to grow up, but not the firstborn. It was often heartbreaking, but everyone around you really and truly believed that the future of the human race depended on this happening, and so as difficult as it was for new parents to murder their firstborn child, they would do so to the deep praise and adulation of friends and family. Why? Because they performed a profound, noble sacrifice for the common good. So when the time came and you had your first child, you did the right thing as much as it pained you to do so, and valiantly and selflessly slaughtered your own child. Now imagine that at some point, years later, you left that screwed up cult and found out that it was all a lie. There is no Grog, and the widespread murder of innocents served no good purpose at all. It was just mass murder and nothing else. It didn't make you noble and brave. It just made you an ignorant, duped murderer. Sure, you could say you didn't know any better, but still, how devastating would it be to face what you had done based on your past beliefs? In fact, how desperately would you want to cling to your past beliefs just to not have to face the reality of what you had done? Well, something just as bad as that hypothetical is a big part of mainstream American culture. But the false god isn't named Grog. The false god is named national security, or sometimes fighting for freedom, or sometimes spreading democracy. And it's an absolute lie, start to finish. But many millions of well-intentioned, devout believers sacrifice their offspring to that false god. And their offspring commit all manner of terrorism and murder on the other side of the world in the name of that god, often losing their lives or limbs or sanity in the process. And unfortunately, they're often just as unwilling to hear the truth as the true believer in Grog would be. And this is understandable. If you had proudly encouraged your son to join the Marines, and then he died in some ditch on the other side of the world, you would have a very big incentive to cling to the belief that at least he died doing something great, something heroic, brave, even noble. Every ounce within your being would desperately want to believe that he gave the greatest sacrifice for his country or for freedom or democracy or anything other than the random whims of insane politicians and the bottom lines of the huge corporations that own the ruling class. And what could be more insensitive, rude, and mean than someone coming along and telling you that your son died for nothing? Actually, for less than nothing. Not only did his service accomplish nothing worthwhile, it actually contributed to violence and evil, it victimized and harmed innocent people, and empowered and enriched sociopathic monsters. But even if this is the case, isn't it nicer just to let the true believers believe the lie? If for nothing else, so they can feel better about things? Actually, no, it's not. If the war machine was dead and gone, and it made no difference what people believed about the past, maybe it'd be a good idea not to bring it up. But this is not the past. This is right now. Today, duped parents proudly continue to send their duped sons and daughters off to act as unwitting pawns to murder or be killed on the other side of the world. Is it doing them a service or doing society a service to let them believe the lie and repeat that lie and perpetuate and spread that lie to the detriment of themselves and everyone else? No, it isn't. Sometimes the truth hurts. Matter of fact, sometimes it hurts a lot. Some people zealously and emotionally resist the truth because it hurts too much to face. That's why, in response to videos like this one, a lot of people who've been indoctrinated in the troop worship mentality will post comments that are emotional, irrational, even hateful to the point of being incoherent. They will vehemently insist that veterans are brave soldiers for freedom, that without their service we'd all be dead or enslaved or oppressed. They proclaim that those who criticize the military only have the freedom to do so because of the military fighting for our freedoms. It should be obvious by now that that is a ridiculous lie. And that's why they never get into the details or substance. They just parrot the mythology like they were taught. Lies that they swallowed, hook, line, and sinker. And then emotionally insult and condemn anyone who doesn't, usually wishing them harm in the process. It's bad enough to find out that you donated to some charity that was a fraud, or endorsed some candidate who's a liar, or believed in some guru who turned out to be a crook. People even resist admitting things like that. They don't want to look gullible or stupid. Now, multiply that by 1,000, and you almost have what members of the military and those who support the troops are faced with. It's one thing for someone to fall for some little trick or sales pitch, but to acknowledge that noble, brave, well-intentioned people went off to some other country and killed people or got killed themselves for a complete and utter lie is too much for a lot of people to face. And as hard as it is for me to say, no veteran who died in combat deserves our thanks. They have done exactly nothing to protect or defend the lives or freedoms of Americans. Nothing. They do, however, deserve our pity, because they threw away their lives in a pointless war game that benefited only tyrants. They may have thought they were doing something brave, noble, and heroic, at least to begin with, but in the end, they died for less than nothing. Neither pointing that out or vehemently denying it will bring them back, and it won't undo whatever pain or death they inflicted on others. However, pointing it out loudly and often might stop future would-be mercenaries from bravely volunteering to be thrown into the meat grinder. If anybody who supports the troops has made it this far in the video, I might as well end on the most depressing, devastating truth of the matter. The one people really don't want to hear, but should anyway. The media and the military try hard to drastically underreport the sky-high suicide rate among members of the military, active or otherwise. In several combat zones and military conflicts, U.S. soldiers have killed themselves intentionally more often than they've been killed in combat. I want you to think about that very carefully. If you proudly wave goodbye to your son as he ships off for some military deployment somewhere, you should probably worry more about him killing himself than you should worry about him being killed by the enemy. More veterans succumbed to suicide than were killed in Iraq. And here's the part that pro-military people really don't want to hear, or don't want to think about. Many of those suicides are not because those soldiers saw horrible things, but because they did horrible things. They realized far too late that being obedient order followers and acting as loyal hitmen for Uncle Sam doesn't make them righteous defenders of freedom. It makes them thugs, invaders, terrorists, and murderers. It makes them monsters. And when the humanity still left inside of them sees the monster they've become, they decide that that monster has to die. So no, parents shouldn't proudly send their children off to become monsters. And no, we shouldn't thank or cheer people who commit violence for politicians. Nor should we pretend that what they're doing has anything to do with freedom. And even if the alternative is offending others, decent people who understand the truth should not remain silent while others continue to feed innocence to the war machine. Guys, thanks for watching my video. You'll want to take a couple minutes to look through my shirt store. I've got over 50 hard-hitting designs like facts don't care about your feelings, protecting and serving the crap out of you, legalize freedom, truth is treason in the empire of lies, nobody for president, start leading yourself, taxation is theft, CNN, the communist news network, do no harm, take no, born free, taxed to death, sheepvolution, and you can ignore reality, but you can't ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. There are way more designs, and I'm adding new ones every week, so check back often. The purpose of these shirts is to interrupt regularly scheduled life with a thought-provoking, hard-hitting nugget of truth. Your purchase keeps content flowing on my demonetized, YouTube-censored, advertiser-unfriendly channel. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.